We've entered the final race of the regular series season here for the High Tide Racing League MF Racing Designs Cup Series, and this afternoon we swing back out to where the championship came to its final close in season number 1. Today, though, it's only the midway point. Welcome to Concord, North Carolina, and to the Charlotte Motor Speedway. My name is Oliver Beverell, alongside Josh Baird. We are bringing you all of racing action from start to finish this afternoon from this 1.5-mile quad oval on its own legacy configuration. Josh, the home of the yellow safer barrier walls return, and boy, what a phenomenal race this is going to be this afternoon. Charlotte last season was an absolutely stellar race, and I am anticipating it's going to be no less here tonight.
Yeah, I agree, Nolan, and the cool thing about this is last year it was the Next Gen Cups cars that they raced here, and this year it'll be the Gen 4s, so we may see quite a bit of different show here tonight. But Charlotte, back in its heyday, was also with these Gen 4 Cup cars, so these cars are built for this. So I expect to see a lot of great action out of these guys tonight as they try and fight to set themselves up for a good playoff run. Right
now, that playoff run looking a little something like this. When you factor in all the wins and your ins, that would put Benjamin Lacey, Nick Nickerson, Tony Hillbrands, Jason Greenwell, Michael Thorpe Jr., Michael Ashmore, Scott Shire, Ty Marasco, Dalton Kilroe, and Dustin Ping all locked into the playoffs. Technically, Brian Dees not fully secure in. He still has to mathematically make his way in. And given the fact that he is not present at the racetrack tonight, that spot for him, he's a little bit at risk, but I think he should be fine with a 32-point buffer. Right now, it's all eyes on 12, where Kevin Foster and Connor Gibson will get set to duke it out for the final spot available up for grabs in the top 12.
It's going to be a wild step to the finish. We've got a lot of guys trying to make that cut line coming into the playoffs here, and a win tonight could help you get in as well for the win if you're in. And then we got Nick Nickerson just barely made it tonight by being able to start.
Nick Nickerson, of course, was in a must-win scenario if you wanted, well, a must-start scenario if you wanted to have those 3 race wins count for something this afternoon. You have to make at least 11 starts if you want your win to score, to put yourself into the playoffs, to lock yourself in. Right now, he only has 10 starts to his name, but an 11th start this afternoon should get him up into fine form. Few other drivers, most notably Aaron Smith II, has a couple wins on the season for Aaron Smith. He is not going to be able to be in, though. He only has 5 races to start. And unfortunately, Zachary Wareham, also with 1 win, will not be able to win his way into the playoff run. He will come up just 1 start short of being able to make it in. That is such a tough break for him. But in terms of the points battles, Mike Massengel and Steve Ulrich, they sit 14th and 15th. They are mathematically the only 2 drivers now that are capable of pointing their way into the playoffs.
Yeah, you talk about repeat winners that won't make the cut tonight. That makes 8 guys so far this season that have won a race, and 2 of them haven't shown up tonight. So we'll have to see if one of these guys are going to be one of those guys that can put that first notch on their belt of the season and try and get themselves into that final playoff spot.
Brian Dees has made it to the racetrack, so his position will be secure in 32 points of the good for the playoff bubble, and with only 19 drivers getting set to make starts this afternoon, it is now impossible for Brian Dees to lose that standing if he takes the green flag, which now officially makes it set. This fight between Connor Gibson and Kevin Foster, and we'll see how this is going to pan on out, and we go racing here in just a few moments. Qualifying will draw to a close. Let's take a rundown of what your starting grid looks like for more racing action here this afternoon from Concord, North Carolina. Starting this race on the pole this afternoon, it is going to be none other than Dalton Kilroe with Scott Shire beside him on the front row. Michael Thorpe Jr. is down to the number 3 spot for GGA Esports. Nick Nickerson is down in 4th. Zero Foxtrot Motorsports' David Leakey is in 5th, with Ty Marasco for Team MFRD in 6th. Benjamin Lacey, your defending champion for 785 Racing, down in 7th. Tony Hillbrands, he's in 8th. Connor Gibson trying to battle his way in. He is in a winner-takes-all grudge match with Kevin Foster. He starts the first of the pair in 9th, with Dustin Ping down in 10th.
11th is Connor Gibson's rival Kevin Foster, with Sean Williams sitting in 12th. Brian Dees is going to be 13th tonight, with Taylor Butcher Benjamin in 14th, and 15th Jason Greenwell, 16th Paul Zathmary, 17th Carter Phillips, 18th is going to be Mike Massengel, with 19th going to be Brandon Meyer.
Brandon Meyer making one of his first starts in his High Tide Racing League career. He'll be starting this race down for pit road, was not able to put in a qualifying lap. But you see now everybody getting set to roll on out from Charlotte Motor Speedway as we get set to kick this race off. It's going to be a fun ride here this afternoon. This is going to be a long ride as well. 200 miles about to get underway for the last regular series season race. Connor Gibson and Kevin Foster, they are starting only one row apart from each other. What are you thinking here, Josh? Do you reckon one driver's got a better edge over the other?
I don't think so, but what I do think is it's going to be checkers or wreckers when it comes to those guys trying to make it to the finish. They're really going to be desperate to make that final spot of the playoffs. Their season is going to be banking on this race right here, so they're going to be pushing as hard as they possibly can to try and beat out that other guy for the final race of the season. And it looks like Kevin Foster's got another new paint tonight, so we'll have to see how that new paint job plays out for him.
Kevin Foster switching to the Budweiser colors. That we'll take a look. Back up front, Dalton Kilroy, your pole sitter, going to be the one to take us to the green flag. As always, we're happy that you're joining us here on a beautiful Monday night. The pace car dives down into pit road. Time to see the top 12 get locked out and ready to rumble for the playoffs. It's go, go, go from Concord. Scott Shire drives around the top of turn numbers 3 and 4. He will lead lap number 1 to green. The field in hot pursuit as we dive down to turn number 1. Shire, your race leader at the end of lap number 1.
Shire and Kilroy, guys that we talked about last week that have been struggling to find themselves at that top step of the podium. And I think tonight might be one of those nights where they can find themselves up there, fighting up there once again. But Scott Shire sitting second in points, which is pretty impressive for him so far this season, to be able to not quite get himself to that win column yet, but still be sitting second in points just behind Tony Hilbrands.
Well, don't forget, there's an asterisk over him being second to the points because he's actually tied with Tony Hilbrands for the overall points lead entering tonight. 13 top 10s, 5 top 5s. It's been a very consistent drive for Scott Shire. He's been putting in the work this season and showing that he is very much a champion contender despite having no wins on the boards as he is tied with Hilbrands for that points lead. But right now, Hilbrands is secured in with the race win. Shire is not. He's got to finish this race in order to make that official, but right now, looking like that is very much going to be the case. Right now, we're single file on most of this field. Up top for the number 84 of David Leakey, the Zero Foxtrot Motorsports U.S. Army Ford Mustang, trying to drive around the top side of Dustin Ping.
Dustin Ping and Leakey going at it side by side, going through turns 3 and 4. I think that high line is going to be a little more difficult for these guys tonight to be able to pull off passes, but it's a good place to keep yourself alongside the opponents. We'll have to check out to see if it pays off for him here, being on the outside of going to 1 and 2, but he might lose a little bit of position and have to dive down behind the 89 here.
Side by side as they rumble down the back straightaway just in front of them. Tony Hilbrands and Ty Marasco going to war, and looking like Marasco's going to be muscled up and out. Marasco's number 1 MFRD Mustang starting to drop back a little bit. Currently fighting with the outside of Dustin Ping. Whoa, we got one going around at the back. Marasco almost around 3 wide through the quad oval. They'll recover it, and I believe that was Carter Phillips in the BC Simsport machine at the back that just had a close shave.
Ty Marasco once again finding the outside wall. He's been notorious for that so far this season, and no difference there. And as Paul Zadberry gets a little loose coming out of turn number 2.
Satmar with that big loose moment had a bit of a scary one, but he's able to get that thing underneath him. Already, Charlotte Motor Speedway starting to rear its ugly head, and right now, the challenges cannot be understated. The pavement may be newer than the rescan version, but don't mistake it, this track is still bumpy as all heck, and it is making these drivers have to work for it this afternoon.
Yeah, I was actually just messing around on Charlotte Motor Speedway earlier today, and even though it's a mile and a half, it does not feel that big or that wide. So coming out of these corners, they'll catch you off guard really quick. if you're not ready to catch it. And with these Gen 4 cars, you're already having to manhandle the cars enough by yourself, and so giving the track working against you as well is just going to make it a difficult night for these guys, but it always makes for a good action-packed race.
Dalton Kilrow under fire from Nick Nickerson. Nickerson, remember, had to make the start this afternoon in order to officially secure his position in the playoffs. He has done that, so Nickerson is going to be in. He is secure in his run into the points. He enters this race 11th overall to the point standings because he has missed a couple, but hey, not a bad run still from that number 2 machine. Now try to battle up to the number 2 spot around the outside of Dalton Kilrow, and here comes Michael Thorpe Jr. trying to do the same.
So you got Kilrow, Thorpe Jr., and Nickerson all fighting for that position, but guess who's right behind him? It's Connor Gibson. So Connor Gibson up into 5th place out the gate when his opponent is actually down in 15th right now. So Connor Gibson doing what he needs to do to get himself locked into the playoffs.
Seeing what does he have to do, as right now the whole field is in a hot pursuit with each other, right down in towards turn number 3 and 4. Further behind, David Leake and Brian Dees also under a battle of their own as they try to go side by side through turn numbers 1 and 2. Dees holds the inside, but Leakey powers through on the top. But here comes that number 17 entry, trying to hunt to the bottom of 3.
Brian Dees looking to the inside there, getting nice and low right there, apexing perfectly through turn number 4. But it looks like he didn't get the opportunity to make that pass, so he'll have to take another look at it. But he's alongside his teammate now, Ty Marasco, and these MFRD guys, when they team up together, they can do a lot.
They really can. I mean, the Team MFRD drivers have been unstoppable when they get linked up together. The problem right now, and the Achilles heel really all season long for Team MFRD, has been pit road. They have not been able to put together a clean pit stop run to save their lives, and they're hoping that tonight maybe they'll finally be able to find some luck down in the pits here this afternoon. But there's been quite a few instances that I could talk to in not just this season, but also last season, that shows pit road is still something that team is struggling to get figured out.
Yeah, I think even at Charlotte last year, we had an MFRD incident in the pits. So hopefully tonight is the first night that, well, not the first night, but, you know, one of the cleaner nights that they've had. And I think that they'll be able to pull it off. And we really need Kilrow to have a good night tonight because he's sitting up in 4th right now. And like I said earlier, he's still looking for his first win of the season. And those pit entry mistakes and pit exit mistakes are only going to hurt his chances of winning if he wants to get his first win of the season.
Scott Shire under fire from Nick Nickerson. The number 4 car got out in front early, but he has since then been on the backslide. And right now, that 2 car really looking to attack down in towards turn numbers 3 and 4. Driving off the top shelf of the quad oval and running down to the front straightaway, looking here like Shire might not be hanging on to that lead for too much longer.
Shire is doing his best to hold off the lead. I don't think he's going to have it here as Nick Nickerson looks down to the inside to take that opportunity away from him. Nickerson, and Thorpe are both guys that love being out in the front, and you know, both guys that so far throughout the season, we've called a lot of races with those guys side by side trying to battle for the lead, and once again, we got it here.
Don't forget that it was around the outside that Shire took the lead on the first lap of the race on Dalton Kilrow, and now seeing if he can't use that outside line to defend his position. Not going to do it. Nickerson takes the lead and immediately slides across the nose, keeping that Ford car from getting the charge. Now it's all the battle for 3rd and 2nd between Thorpe and Shire.
Yeah, Nickerson getting a nice comfy lead in front of Shire, and Thorpe looking to cut the nose off of Shire as well as they come out of turn number 4. Shire kind of peeked down to the inside, wasn't able to pull it off, so they're going to file in now, and it looks like Kilrow might get an opportunity to take advantage of Shire slipping back early on in this race.
Yeah, Kilrow seeing if he can't get a run. Looks high, sets up the over-under, goes down low. Beautiful setup there for Dalton Kilrow. He's going to drive it in down on the inside line and pick off that number 4 car as he'll take up that final podium position as he drives it in deep into turn numbers 3 and 4.
Good job on these first 4 to build a nice sizable gap from 5th place. And now it looks like Shire is getting a little frustrated as he's beginning to fall back and wants to start getting those positions back, and we'll have to see if he can catch Kilrow here. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to have what it's left, so he must have burned his stuff up pretty early on in the race, and now he's fighting some tire degradation.
Dalton Kilbrough, one of the right now 11 drivers that is locked into the playoffs, 79 points to the good, but still winless on the season, looking to try and change that this afternoon. Right now, I'm taking a quick look through, and I'm trying to see if we can track down a driver that could still get a race win and put himself up and into the playoff run. I'm not seeing one. I think it's impossible to win this race and lock yourself in because you don't have the minimal race requirements. It all does really come down to that battle between Foster and Gibson, and right now, Connor Gibson is winning that one. He's up on Foster, who's all the way down to 15th.
Yeah, it looks like it's becoming solidified at this point. I've seen a couple guys that you're like, okay, maybe they can make it, but a couple guys didn't even show up tonight. I look at Michael Ashmore as one of those that could have made it in if he would have made it. Actually, no, I think he is locked in.
Yeah, Ashmore's
tonight,
already locked in with the win.
Yeah, so he's just taking the night off and enjoying the free week to prepare himself for the track that we're coming up on next week. But yeah, so it looks like the rest of these guys are just, they didn't make enough races to make the cutoff line. And so it's kind of been nice because this is one of the more solidified entries into the playoffs we've seen. Usually you got 3 or 4 guys that we're constantly having to do the math on. And so far it seems pretty cut and dry on how this is going to play out for us.
Really does show that sometimes the key to getting yourself into the playoffs is just not even by consistently being quick or anything, just by consistently showing up. And as one by one drivers miss races, you're going to overtake them because, hey, even if you don't win the race, and even if you don't dead last, but somebody doesn't show up, that's still a 20-point gap that you're gaining on these guys. The field sizes we've had so far this season, 20, 25 points. It's a pretty huge margin when it's 1 point per position. And it's a tough gap to try and break away from. Although looking like Connor Gibson might be on the backslide. He does have damage on the right front, I'm starting to notice here. And he's going to let Taylor Butch-Benjamin, Ty Marasco, and Brian Dees all get through.
Yeah, Connor Gibson on the backslide a little bit, but the good news is he's still a couple of positions ahead of his opponent, Kevin Foster, who he needs to beat out if he wants to make that playoff position. So he just needs to cool his jets a little bit.
I think Gibson's car is broke. It looks like it's crabbing pretty bad down the straights.
Yeah, I saw quite a bit of a wiggle there on the straight as well, so I'm curious if he is struggling a little bit with some crabbing. Yeah, I mean, you get a wheel offset as a part of your fixed setup, but usually people don't. Well, maybe it is that much of an offset on this track.
Yeah, that second on board was from Brian Dees, and his wheel offset wasn't too dissimilar to that of Gibson, so maybe Gibson really is just struggling with all of that aero damage on the right-hand side. You can see that right front wheel is absolutely bent up. It is destroyed, and that is causing him to hemorrhage time. Right now, he is running about 0.6 of a second slower than everybody else in the racetrack. The cars up front ran 31.8. He was only at 32.3.
Yeah, he just needs to hang in there until we can get to a green flag stop and he can get some of that damage repaired, maybe use that fast repair. If I were him, I'd probably wait on that a little bit, as it looks like we got Thorpe and Nickerson side by side for the lead going into turn number 1. Thorpe falling back just a little bit. Oh, and he's gaining some momentum through that bottom side of 2. Nickerson go clear up against the wall, and that gives Thorpe enough momentum coming out of the corner to be able to take away the lead from. No, he's not going to take away the lead. So Thorpe going back in through turns 3 and 4. It looks like, here we go, he's got some momentum going through there, and Nickerson's going to file back in behind him.
Michael Thorpe Jr. takes up the race lead for the first time tonight. The number 34 machine is to the point. Thorpe took his first and only win so far at Dover. He has looked to take that checkered flag so many other times over the course of the season, trying to see if finally he can achieve win number 2 on the season to close out the regular series season. That would be a huge morale boost going into the playoff season.
Yeah, I think that Thorpe has only had 1 win this season is kind of a miracle to me. We've seen him constantly in the front. I'm pretty sure every single race he's led at least 1 lap. So to hear that he only has 1 win so far in the season is kind of devastating. And I'm hoping that, come in the playoff time, he'll get that chance to turn it around and win when it counts to help him give himself the best chance for the championship.
Yeah, it's been unfortunate to see Thorpe, I think, be so far down where we're used to seeing him, right, throughout the course of the season. It's kind of unlike Thorpe to not be winning so many races. I mean, right now, he is like 13% of all the laps that he has run. That is the third best stat of anybody in this league all season long. The only drivers that are better, Aaron Smith, 22% of laps led, and Nick Nickerson, 44% of laps led, the laps that he's run this season. So the fact that he hasn't won more is amazing. He's led 234 laps this season entering tonight. It's almost criminal that he hasn't gotten onto the podium. Well, he's gotten on the podium. It's criminal that he's gotten onto the top step of that podium more than that.
Yeah, I would say it's criminal as well. He is a more aggressive driver, though, so we have seen him get himself into situations where he creates contact after trying to go for a hard pass or whatnot. And, you know, maybe once or twice this season were self-inflicted errors that's caused him not to be able to be at the top step of the podium. But I think if he cleans that up a little bit, this is his time to do so. And he can find himself winning the championship at the end of this. I can really see him being able to fight for the win come toward the end of the season.
You tell, though, right now that Nick Nickerson is not going to let him take that one easily, as he has really tried to apply that pressure back on Wyckothor Jr. as they drive it in deep into turn numbers 1 and 2. That 2 car wants to go, trying to open up that door on the inside, can't quite get there in 1 and 2. Could he have something for him in 3, though? Down the backstretch, doesn't look like it.
No, I think if I were Nick, I would just be settling in right now, riding in tracks of Thorpe, maybe see if he makes a mistake, but also let him eat up all the clean air, because that's going to affect his gas mileage at the end of the day, and he'll be the one taking the longer pit stop to try and recover that gas. So maybe Nick Nickerson's sitting in line right now and just trying to save a little bit of fuel.
Brian Dees got around Sean Williams for the 9th place spot about a lap ago. And this is the move that saw Brian Dees make that pass on the 89. Just sent it to the inside. Williams caught the wall exiting turn 2. Made that an easy overtake.
Sean Williams having a decent night tonight. 10th place is usually, you know, it's about where he sits, but I think he's been racing a little bit cleaner tonight and being able to keep himself within the top 10. But it looks like Connor Gibson's sitting in the pits right now. That's not going to be good for his ability to make himself into the playoffs if he's sitting in the pits.
It sure isn't, and it looks like that may very well be a retirement for Connor Gibson, and that would be as a result of all of that wall damage, it looks like. So for Gibson, his day goes from bad to worse, and this is not at all what he was hoping to have happen for him. This was on lap 25, and well, you'll see Gibson just hammered to those positions. He got into the outside wall again, and that's only going to aggravate all that damage. And then this was the lap that he came down into pit road on, just pulled it down low and said, yep, I'm going to call it quits from here. That effectively hands that last playoff spot to Kevin Foster on the silver platter.
Yeah, that's quite the surprise. I mean, I would be a little frustrated with how the car is handling at that point, but with the playoff implications, it very well surprises me that he actually dove down and called it quits. I don't think his car was that bad enough, especially with the fast repairs, that he couldn't just get that taken care of really quickly and try and fight towards the end of the race. But, you know, things are going on that we may not even get to know about as Dustin Payne goes for his first pit stop.
And Dustin Payne down in the pit road for the first time this afternoon as he tries to get himself sorted. Meanwhile, Thor, Nickerson, Kilroy out in front. This is about on cue with where we were expected to see our first bit of pit stop, so expect for the whole field to be before long. Here comes Jason Greenwell with the number 83 machine. He is already locked into the playoffs.
Jason Greenwell coming down for his stop. He's another one of the guys that we talked about this season that's just been consistent, and that's paid off for him to give him one of the positions that gets him into the playoffs. And now we get the chance to, as it looked like he overshot his box a little bit. Nick Nickerson coming in. Oh, big lockup. That may be trouble for Nick Nickerson. We'll have to see if that's going to cause him some time in the box, but he's got Lacey and Hilbrands behind him.
He came in hot, and I would be shocked if he didn't get a speed penalty off of that. We'll take a look here as he makes his way down into his pit stall. Got Carter Phillips that has actually gone fully into the grass on his pit entry. And here comes Dalton Kilroy. Thorpe lifted out a little early, allowed Kilroy to take that net race lead, as now they are also both locking it down and getting into their box early. Here comes Brian Dees as well. And Tom Marasco going to go around one more.
Marasco, one of those guys that tends to be out there quite a bit longer than everybody else, and so far we're 2 for 2 on clean MFRD stops. And but the tricky thing is about this track is it's not just pit entry that you have to worry about, but the pit exit as well with that bump on the apron.
And we caught a lot of incidents with that in the Gen 7 cars in Season 1, but that is mostly due to the independent suspension. I don't think we're going to be getting as many issues with that in these Gen 4 cars. They can handle those bumps a little bit more effectively. But you still see drivers taking a wide berth around. It doesn't hurt to be careful. Ty Marasco's into pit road, and that will close out the pit stop window. Nick Nickerson takes up the net race lead. Despite that, he did not get a speeding penalty.
Nick Nickerson having a nice big lead to come out of this first set of green flag stops, and like you said, extremely lucky. From our perspective, it looked like he was for sure going to get nailed with that speeding penalty, but it must have just been barely. As here we go, we can watch him try and come into the pits here.
I mean, that he is speeding. There's no doubt about it. So he must have locked it down slow enough that it averaged out by the time we got to the next scoring loops. That is how it works. It takes the average between two timing loops to judge if you're actually speeding, quote unquote, or not, to give you a little bit of margin of error. And there is Carter Phillips, and that did net him a penalty for an unsafe pit entry. So Phillips had to stop and hold for about a minute. He was in the box for. So that puts him now 2 laps down and effectively out of this race if he can't get a lucky caution.
Yeah, Carter Phillips having a little bit of unfortunate luck there. You do have to stay to the left of the yellow cone if you want to have a successful pit stop. But as we've seen so many times throughout this season, getting down to speed in these cars is a very tough task because the car just does not want to stop after going so fast around these tracks.
Dalton Kilroe now in a battle for third with Michael Thorpe Jr. trying to see if he can't keep Thorpe behind. All of this while Benjamin Lacey was able to get out in front. Now Nick Nickerson, the only reason why he wasn't out further in the lead is because he had a stop of 15.2 seconds. That's a long stop by stock car standards. Usually you're looking at around 14 seconds. For reference, Lacey, Kilroe, and Michael Thorpe Jr. were 14.60, 14.67, and 14.52 pit stop times, respectively. The first driver that had another 15-second stop was Dustin Ping, was now all the way back in 7th. So Nickerson, the only reason why he's out that far ahead is because he had a whole bunch of fresh tires to help him out get in front.
Yeah, great job by Nickerson to have that successful green flag stop. That's the kind of thing you need to do if you want to try and win this championship. And once again, we got Kilroe and Thorpe looking to duke it out. Thorpe looking to the inside through there, but didn't get enough momentum to be able to pull off that pass. I don't think he's going to have enough here to go into 1.
Does not look like it, as right now Dalton Kilroe takes up the spot. And he'll hang on against Thorpe for the time being. Other battles right now include Tony Hilbrands and Scott Shire. They're scrapping it out for 5th place on the racetrack. A bit further behind, Ty Marasco and Kevin Foster. They are going at it, 11th and 12th on the racetrack. Still looking to see if they can put their times down.
Yeah, Hilbrand's doing the silent but deadly treatment to these guys in front of him. He is one of those guys that can sneak up to you at the end and find himself sitting there on the podium. So he's just biding his time right now and maintaining a good gap between him and the guys in front of him. And I think we'll see him a little higher up towards the end of this race.
Kevin Foster is closing the gap here quite consistently. He was a good 0.3 of a second faster than Ty Marasco last time by, so we could be seeing that Budweiser machine trying to push himself one step closer to a top 10 here before too long. Looking around the number 1. Oh, unless he does that and clips off the apron, that is going to send him up and wide. And all of a sudden, a 0.3 of a second gap becomes 0.9 of a second. So that is going to be that. Jason Greenwell having a nerve moment as he is having some sort of technical difficulties up the road. That leaves this battle for third, the closest one on the racetrack.
Yeah, these guys are building quite a gap between each other. I think it's just these Gen 4 cars at this track, with it being bumpy and kind of tighter than your typical 1.5 miles. So they really have to navigate these turns well, and so it's causing the skill gap a little bit to increase. And I think with maybe even the track temperature, it might be creating a little bit of chaos in our, in their ability to keep the car handled well. But Thorpe Jr. once again trying to find his way to the front, and he's just biding his time behind Kilrow. Maybe he took some notes from Nick Nickerson on how to save fuel when you're riding behind the opponent in front of you.
We're about a third of the way in now to this race, and with Connor Gibson being so many laps down, we do have our playoff field tentatively confirmed. The way things are looking right now, it's looking like we have all of the top 12 that we know are now going to be in it to fight for the for the 12 spots over the next little while. So we'll pull up the unofficial playoff field. It currently is looking to be Lacey, Nickerson, Hillbrands, Jason Greenwell, Thorpe, Ashmore, Shire, Marasco, Kilrow, Ping, Dees, and Foster. Unless some miracle happens and Gibson is able to get about 20 laps up on Kevin Foster here.
Yeah, I don't see that happening at all tonight. So I think the field is pretty well set from here. And the nice thing for Kevin Foster is he can breathe easy knowing that he's pretty much punched his ticket into the playoffs here. So just keep his race clean from here on out tonight and ride it out and start focusing on the next few races.
Those next few races coming on up, I'm checking a look at the schedule here. Of course, there is no, a lot of leagues like to take off weeks between the regular season finale and the playoffs kicking off. Not the case with the High Tide Racing League. They are running straight through to the end. They are not taking a single week off. They're going to be running out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway next week. The old Indianapolis Motor Speedway from 2009. To make a run around the Brickyard. And then, of course, the last road course race on the season, Watkins Glen International, will be the next one up on July 8th. And then July 15th, we'll close out the round of 12 at the legacy version of Michigan International Speedway. That'll set the stage for the round of 8. It's going to be really entertaining next 3 weeks.
These are all great tracks. I think the classic Brickyard with these Gen 4 cars are going to be an epic race. And then you got Watkins Glen International Cup circuit. I think that there's a few guys in here who are not big fans of road courses, let alone road courses in these cars. But I think that'll still put on a great show. And then Michigan is going to be absolute barn burner for us to watch as we get ready to narrow down the playoffs going into that July 22nd week.
But before we can get to all of that, there's a good bit of racing still coming up this afternoon. We're going to be sticking around in North Carolina for this Wednesday when the Beer League takes it home for their penultimate race of the season. They'll be at the newer version, running the Roval layout with a 2018 chicane, and it is looking to be a wet race. Oh boy, if you know, you know. It's going to be a wild day. June 28th, the VSA Sports Car Championship will have their JRT Summer Sprint. 2 hours and 40 minutes around Wisconsin's Road America. That'll be starting at noon for the green flag. And then it is green flag dropping as well for the Classic IndyCar Series with the 7th race. They'll also be in Indiana for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They'll be running on the road course layout. That'll be starting at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern time as well. So lots of racing still yet to come throughout this week before we can probably kick off playoffs on Monday nights.
Great summer schedule coming up for Green Flag TV. So when it's hotter than Hades outside, you can just sit inside and watch some Green Flag TV, which is what I'll be doing, I know, for the next couple of weeks because it's been pretty hot out here for me. And so I'm excited to see some of the Beer League going on. Obviously, Classic IndyCar Series is also a big favorite of mine, but got some good tracks and good cars coming up.
Hotter than Hades, right? Stealing that one for the track, but right now, Benjamin Lace has been losing a good bit of time back to Dalton Kilroy here in the battle for second. You saw him get wicked loose off of turn 4, and now drifting all the way up to the top in 1 and 2, trying to get some momentum going, but Kilroy was pressuring him. He's under fire now for that second spot.
Yeah, Benjamin Lacey having an uncharacteristic drive for him. I don't know. Usually, this guy seems like he's got some sort of trick up his sleeve because later on the race, we always end up finding him in the podium spots, even though in mid race, it seems like he struggles a little bit. So maybe he's on some sort of fuel saving run, or maybe he had a little bit of a slip up earlier that's caused his tires to be maybe overheated or something like that as he slides into the wall. So I think we just got our answer there. He's not super comfortable with how his car is handling right now.
Yeah, that'll end that battle pretty darn quick. So Kilroy and Thorpe pick up second and third. Thorpe still has not been looking to make that move around Dalton Kilroy. I don't think he's been wanting to. He's been really biding his time all race long. Meanwhile, Jason Greenwell exchanging hands with Ty Marasco, and now damage on the right-hand side for Greenwell. Has Greenwell just found the wall?
Greenwell probably found the wall here. Let's see if we. Oh yeah, right there on the entrance. Entrance to turn one though. That's kind of an odd spot. Maybe he had a little bit of a brake lock up there that got him loose and overcorrected it to get him into the wall. Or, you know, the other problem you have is if you don't brake enough, it can tend to lead to you getting tight entering into the corner and creating that contact. We'll have to see if that was the case here.
Oh man, he caught it going in.
I was going to say there's option 3 is getting too close to the wall when you go into the corner, and then it sucks you in for the next, 100 feet or so. So it looks like option 3 for Jason Greenwell as he's struggling to recover from that after he got passed by Marasco.
Caught the concrete wall, but unfortunately, where that same area cut out, that's what really sucked his car in. Tough break for him. A lot of damage on the right-hand side he's going to have to struggle with for the next less than 10 laps or so. Tony Hillbrand, Scott Shire, door to door, and almost nothing between them in the battle for that 5th spot. Hillbrand's trying to hang on to that white Mopar Charger. Meanwhile, Shire's Mustang still hanging on down low.
Hillbrand's looking good so far this race, sitting in that spot, fighting for the 5th position. Shire really doing a good job at trying to make up for that tire struggle that he had going on in the first stint, still able to keep himself fighting for a top 5 position here. But it looks like Hillbrands might have enough momentum, but that low side tends to get a lot of momentum in the corner. We'll have to see coming out here who's going to have the win. Looks like they're going to be side by side once again going down the backstretch.
Hillbrands clears down to the bottom of turn 3. That puts him now squarely into the top 5. Scott Shire, though, trying to see if he can battle back. He's got another run down to the inside line. He looks to make that charge down into turn number 1.
Shire looking to the inside once again, going through the corners, that lower side seeming to give him a good run. Now we're down the back stretch, and they're still side by side once again as we get ready to go into turn number 3. Hillbrand's got a little bit of momentum on that backside there, but getting real tight going through turn number 4 there, trying to pinch him down to force him to lift a little bit. Did not work, though, as Shire's still alongside.
Shire's still alongside. Hillbrands is really doing his darndest here to try to pick off that number 4 car. He just cannot get around him from that top lane. Shire's able to rip the bottom so well that Hillbrands just doesn't have an answer for him. He's going to try again here down to turn 3. He's able to get a good drive in, but it's all of his momentum on exit where he gets compromised. Looking though like Shire was the same though as he checked up big time in the middle of 4.
Yeah, and with these guys fighting so closely, this is also going to do a number on their tires, so they got to be careful too that they don't get too racy at this point in the race, because you're going to wear out your tires, and then you're both going to end up falling back from the rest of the pack there, and you really want to try and stay as close as you can toward the leader, though they're doing a good job at keeping it side by side.
Still, though, you see Scott Shire battling right back to that inside line as they carry it through turn numbers 3 and 4. Off the top shelf of the final corner. Hillbrand still hanging on, but now Shire very much going on offense now instead of defense. But so far, Hillbrand is not a driver that's about to be denied that spot.
You can tell Hillbrands is really trying to defend that position well, but it doesn't seem that once he gets behind him that he can really keep him behind him. There's just something that Shire's got right now Obviously, it's not enough for Shire to be able to make that pass cleanly and keep it clean or keep it ahead of Hilbrand's, but for some reason, he's able to catch him, get alongside him, but not able to execute the pass on the backside. So I think Hilbrand's driving defensive now is doing a good job at keeping Shire from being able to fully take that position away from him.
Well, you know what they say, right? It's easier to chase rather than it is to lead because you have a target to follow. So it looks like that is very much where Scott Shire's more comfortable. These guys have effectively been side by side, though, for about 6 laps straight now. About to be going on 7 if you don't count the few seconds a lap where they are single file. But right now, I mean, this has been a phenomenal battle between the two of them. This is unstoppable force beating the movable object. Shire is back through into 5th.
Shire able to take over that position from Hilbrand's. We'll have to see if Hilbrand's has anything to answer for that. Maybe a little bit of this draft coming down the backstretch will give him an opportunity to peek to the inside of 3. Does not get it pulled off. So he's going to have to sit behind him once again as he gets a little loose through 4 there. Dives down to the apron, but keeps it under him and is able to keep going. But that gives Shire the opportunity to ride off into the sunset. It's going to take Hilbrand's a few laps to try and make up that time.
Second run of pit stops. Checking off now, actually. Carter Phillips is down and into the pits in his number 30 Impala. Field window is looking to be about 32 to 35 laps thereabouts. We saw one driver stretch at 36. That was Ty Marasco. So expecting drivers and the whole field to be in any time now.
Yeah, Carter Phillips only doing a handful of races so far this season. So when you got these younger guys, was Dustin Ping got a little loose trying to get slowed up enough to get into the pit lane. We'll have to see if there's any penalty from that. Probably not. I think he got himself slowed up enough, but sketchy moment for him.
Yeah, he's fine.
So close. Yeah, he nearly took himself out on that inside wall.
Post call for Dustin Ping. He is able to save it, though. The battle for second stays out. Dustin Ping was one of the first drivers in under the last pit stop run as well. And this stop coming in exactly at halfway, about 67 and a half down now, 67 and a half to go. So we are now halfway home and still caution-free in race number 15 of the championship.
Yeah, these guys are doing a really good job tonight and being able to keep it clean. This isn't the easiest of tracks that they've had to race so far this season, but they're able to figure out how to make sure that they're turning over clean laps. As we got Greenwell looking down for his second stop of tonight. We'll have to see if anybody follows him behind. It looks like Lacey jumped into the pits as well.
Last year's race did not go caution-free. We had at least one yellow flag. They came out at about that lap 30 mark, and it looks like they only had the one yellow flag in that race. So could we potentially see this race go caution-free? The Gen 4 cars would it be the first caution-free race we've seen all season long. The most notable one, I think, still remains Rockingham right at the start of the season. Nickerson and Thorpe are both in the pit road. There you see Taylor Butcher Benjamin in just a bit behind. Time is very much on the march here for a lot of these drivers.
It still blows my mind to this day how they were able to keep Rockingham green the whole race, but I think they knew how challenging Rockingham was going to be, and just trying to fight the track was enough to keep them occupied. But here at Charlotte, knowing that the playoff picture is kind of locked into place, we might see these guys taking it a little more easy, but of course people still want to win races, right? And people still want to make sure that they can best their competitor out there. So maybe a little closer towards the end of the race, we're going to see the pace pick up a little bit, but it really does help that these guys have managed to spread out. And honestly, this has been one of the larger fields I think we've seen so far this season from the High Tide Racing League.
Tony Hilbrand, Sean Williams, Ty Marasco, Brian Dees, Dalton Kilbrough, and Scott Shire all down in his pit road, this time on their stops. Scott Shire really having to lock it down on pit entry. And Ty Marasco still is yet to pit. David Leakey still is yet to pit. Massengel, Sapmary, both still have yet to pit as well. I think that's about it then. So we only have a handful of drivers yet that have to come down. There you see David Leakey at the tail end coming in.
Yeah, Marasco, the pro at making those long runs, once again leading the field. and I'm imagining he's got 1 or 2 more laps in him still, but so far so good for MFRD. We were talking about how they've kind of struggled so far this season, and so far it's been clean running for them.
Tony Hilbrand trying to get around Taylor Butcher-Benjamin. Benjamin came down a lap earlier, was able to get out in front of him with fresh tires. Taylor Hilbrand's, though, taking a spot right back. So that puts him up to 8th place right now. Net P6 on the racetrack after Marasco and Shire. Sorry, Massagel both have to come down pit road. He is right now 1.3 seconds back from Scott Shire, the driver he was fighting with earlier, so still with the possibility to make that work. Dustin Ping and Taylor Butcher-Benjamin also close.
Yeah, Taylor Butcher-Benjamin having a quietly successful race as he's sitting comfortably inside the top 10 as we speak. But he's got Dustin Ping looking right on his tail here. We'll have to see if Dustin makes that pass coming into turn number 3. He does not, so he's going to sit around behind him one more time. Maybe coming out of the 4, he'll have enough momentum to get alongside him, but for now he's just going to settle in behind Taylor, and Taylor's going to have the opportunity to sit in 8th place.
Tony Hilbrand's last time by, putting down the fastest lap of the race, 30.01. No other drivers so far has been able to put down the time that quick. The closest driver to that, Nick Nickerson, a 30.02 really early in the race. Ty Marasco is into pit road, and that is going to mean pit stops are complete. We'll now wait to see these guys come back in with about 30 to go.
Ty Marasco making his stop, which completes that cycle. So Nick Nickerson back out to the lead. Kevin Foster is now in a battle here for this position. Let's see if he can get it out of there. Yep, he got it. Was able to pull that off in a pretty easy succession over Leakey. So great job by Foster. Like we said earlier, he's virtually locked into the playoff run. So tonight has just kind of become more of a fun race for him, as it was a lot more nerve-wracking a little earlier on.
So with all of this said and done, we are looking like we are going to be driving this one out deep into this race. Still caution-free. We still have got ourselves with now 60 laps to go. When we return, there's more racing action on Green Flag TV from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Kevin Foster is slipping back. He's now locked into the playoffs. 9 cars remain on the lead lap. When we return, it's more from Concord.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Still under green flag conditions at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Battle is underway for the number 2 spot. Kilrow clears from Thorpe, right behind Brian Dees.
Yeah, just barely still green. It looked like there was a couple issues during the side-by-side. We may have to go back and look at that here in a couple of minutes, but Thorpe and Kilrow once again in a battle to try and make their way to the top step of the podium.
And this is some of the alluded to issues that came out as a result of this. This has all happened off of turn number 4. Massijo caught the wall. That's really where this all started to go awry. That caused him to slam it right along the wall. You see Jason Greenwell break loose in the background, but then this is where it got tight. Massijo had to hold that thing up top. Kevin Foss was trying to let through lap cars down from the bottom, and it just created a huge mess that nearly resulted in a caution.
Huge bottleneck by those guys, and you got a couple of guys in there that were on the lead lap as well that made that really sketchy for them. Fortunately, though, they were able to sort that out without any incident, and we're still green flag running. But I see some shade popping in over in turns 3 and 4 and down that front stretch, so the track temperatures are going to start dropping, which means we're going to see a little bit of change in handling of these cars.
Quite possibly, yeah. There you see Kevin Foster and Jason Greenwell. Greenwell way up the track in 3 and 4, and that'll give a lot of breathing room there to Kevin Foster. And that still leaves the battle for second as one of the closest ones out on the racetrack right now. Quarter of a second separates the 41 from the 34 entry. Nick Nickerson remains the race leader, about 2.5 seconds ahead of this pack. And right now looking like he wants to cruise away to take up his 4th win of the season.
Nick Nickerson doing a great job at being able to calmly lead the race, you know, just maintaining that gap, probably watching his little black box there, seeing it, Dalton Kilrow about 2.5 seconds back. If he sees that get a little closer, he'll start picking up the pace, but right about now, you just kind of want to drive from your mirror and make sure you keep that gap nice and big, and then have that good, clean final pit stop.
Nickerson's wins have been very sporadic throughout the course of the season. He had one at Phoenix and another 2 weeks later Richmond. The third didn't come until last week in Kansas, when he drove away with a real walk-off win in unprecedented fashion, lapping all the way up to 6th place in a 19-car field, and 2nd place 21 seconds behind. It was a level of domination that we almost never see. Led 103 out of 135 laps that race. And looking like he might not repeat that streak of dominance, but he's definitely looking to go for that win number 4 to tie him up with Benjamin Lacey this afternoon.
Yeah, coming in at the perfect time to start having those wins. I know that a couple times we've talked to him, he said he's been struggling to keep his real-life schedule to balance with this schedule, as Ty Marasco's looking to the inside of Nickerson to try and unlap himself. But back to what I was saying earlier, Nickerson's biggest concern so far this season has been his real-life schedule. That's been his biggest opponent, so I'm curious to see if he can make the rest of these races to give himself the opportunity for the championship, because if he can, he is a real contender for Benjamin Lacey.
I don't think Benjamin Lacey is really secure in the championship this season. I mean, last season, it really did come down to a matter of Benjamin Lacey kind of running away with it. I do not think it is going to be the same situation out this season. In the championship this season has been tantalizingly close, and you know it is going to remain that way all the way through. I mean, if you right now have such a close points battle, and you're entering the playoff season, and when I say that, we're talking about the top 5 being separated by only 19 points and the top 4 only by 10. Imagine what the playoffs are going to be like.
Yeah, I think we're in for a phenomenal back part of this season, and it's funny that I said Benjamin Lacey because he was the leader last week when we were talking about this. But like you said, the points are actually so tight this season that Benjamin Lacey missed one race last week, and he dropped 3 positions and is now sitting in 4th in the point standings, leaving Ty Marasco, Scott Shire, and Tony Hilbrands up at the top. So I really don't, even though I said Benjamin Lacey, I really don't think I could even begin to tell you who I would pick for the championship so far this season because it's been so tight.
Carter Phillips is into pit road. We saw him breaking a little sideways as well on that side-by-side, so he's going to be the next one to come down to the lane. This should be enough to get him going to the end of this race. We are now within that window where if you pit now, you will be good to go to the end of this race. So the final run of pit stops coming up for a lot of drivers in this field. It's amazing to say that, and we're not even an hour deep into this race. This one has just flown by.
These guys are flying around this track, putting down crazy lap times and having nice clean pit stops here. And with it being this spread out, I think we're in for a green flag finish so far, as long as they can keep it green going through those pit cycles. But yeah, this track has been very fast tonight and giving us quite a bit of a show, as it looked like Dustin Ping had a little bit of a wiggle going down that the quad oval there.
.35 to go for Nick Nickerson, officially opening up that pit window. Kilrow still trying to fend off Michael Thorpe Jr. from behind. I think right now Thorpe trying to ease off a bit. They're trying to see if they can close in anything on Nick Nickerson, and they are closing in. Slowly but surely, they are trying to reel this gap in, but it's not enough that it's really doing much. I think Thorpe's just realized that. He now looks to try to get around the 41 from the inside.
Yeah, I think Thorpe's been very patient so far this race to sit behind Kilrow and let him turn over those laps. And now I think he's ready for his opportunity to get around Kilrow and make his way towards Nick Nickerson. And so he's going to start pushing the envelope a little bit, trying to find that little bit of window to try and sneak in there around Kilrow. So far has not had any answer for him, but we are a little later on in the stint, which means the tires are not going to cooperate nearly as well. As Thorpe goes down into the pit lane, Nick Nickerson down in the pit lane. He locked up his rear wheels. We'll have to see if that's a speeding penalty for him or just good timing once again.
He came in real hot, and to be fair, when he was going in there sideways, he managed to make it work. We'll see if it'll be the same situation this time around. Into the pit road, slides it in for Thorpe. And this is the moment of truth. Does Nickerson leave the box? No penalty. Looking like it's all good. Yes, it is. He's out and away, but Thorpe is right behind him.
Thorpe had a really good spot, and I think the reason for that is because he was able to sit behind Kilrow, which means that he was able to save gas, and that means you have a shorter time to refill your tank. So I think it was a great, smart idea for him to sit behind Kilrow to allow him to have that shorter pit stop, and now he is really close to Nick Nickerson.
And it was shorter by a good margin. He was a good 2 seconds quicker in his pit box than Nick Nickerson was. But Nickerson still way out in front because Thorpe had a huge bobble getting out of pit road, and that has cost him heavily. He could have been right behind him. Now he's got an uphill battle to climb.
Yeah, I'm sure Thorpe is kicking himself now because he had such a great stop. But when you get out of here, from beginning to the end, you have to have a perfect stop there. And there's that wiggle you were talking about. He might have made him more conservative driving on that apron as well, which helped build the gap even just a little bit more. But it looks like we have Kilrow coming down for some fresh rubber and some fuel.
Dalton Kilrow down in the pit road. Nickerson last time by, fastest lap of the race and the first driver to put a time down in the 29.8 second bracket. Scott Shire did it earlier on with the 29.99. Nickerson just went a tenth quicker than that. So right now, this number 2 car is the fastest car on the racetrack, but Thorpe's not far behind. He's only a second and a half off.
Considering that Thorpe was nearly or just slightly over 2 seconds before that pit stop, looks like he didn't totally lose out on that pit cycle still. He still netted about a half second, and now he's probably going to end up in front of Kilrow as well. So that means that he's got a clear shot at Nick Nickerson. And knowing how Michael Thorpe Jr. has been running this season, I think he has a really good shot to be able to track down Nick Nickerson, who's held a pretty hefty lead so far this race.
The gap hovers at 1.5. Right now, Dalton Kilrow, he did pit about 3-4 laps later than the other drivers, but he is now all the way down in 5th. He's got to close in 8 seconds if he wants to get up to the leaders. That's a long way to go in just 30 laps, but Kilrow's got a lot of speed underneath him. He's already reeled in half a second this lap. The tire fall off is pretty substantial around here with these cars, so this could be enough to try to get him at least onto the podium.
I think a podium would be a good spot for him to finish so far tonight. But yeah, with 28 to go, it's quite a big task to be able to close up a gap that sizable. Ty Marasco sitting in 3rd right now, but I believe he's still got to make one more pit stop.
And Ty Marasco hoping for a caution to come out so he doesn't have to make that pit stop under green. If he does that now, he's going a lap down. So he is hoping desperately that the yellow flag comes out and he can stay on the lead lap with this strategy. Right now, though, he's not getting the luck that he was hoping for. You saw Thorpe get around for the number 2 spot, put Nick Nickerson back into the race lead by 1.6.
Yeah, another guy that we've been talking about tonight is Benjamin Lacey sitting in 4th, but I think that's because he has yet to pit as well. So another guy that he's looking for.
Lacey,
what's that?
Lacey did pit. He was one of the first ones down. He pitted before Nickerson or Thorpe did, so he's on the oldest tires on the racetrack.
There you go. So I think Lacey might actually have a shot to redeem himself from that earlier issue that we were talking about. Like I said, he's one of those guys that have been so sneaky this season. Just when we want to count him out, he finds his way back up towards the front of the pack. But there's a reason why he sits 4th place right now and has missed a race so far this season. And still sitting in 4th place in the standings is because he's been able to consistently find himself towards the front of the pack at the end of every race.
Ty Marasco forced to pit with 25 laps to go. He was not able to get out with a caution. So now he is going to be down, a lap down at that. So that is it. Pit stops are complete. From here, whatever happens on the strategy call is what these drivers have got to lay their bets with.
So far, Lacey has a decent gap from Kilrow, so pending any crazy antics from Lacey or Kilrow, I think that the podium has kind of set itself up with 24 laps to go. That's quite a task to close that gap of 3.5 seconds. But the thing is like you said, Lacey now has the oldest tires, so if there's some degradation there, that may give Kilrow the chance to close that gap.
Right now, as mentioned, Kilrow, just over 3 seconds back to Benjamin Lacey, 7.5 up to the race leaders. He is closing, but I don't think closing at the rate he needs to if he wants to really go for that win. So the time is starting to tick away. And right now, not a lot of other battles out on the racetrack. You've got Dustin Pink and Sean Williams that are within about 9/10 of a second. 8.5 sees Taylor Butcher from Benjamin trying to stay out in front of Tony Hilbrand's number 92 Mopar machine, although Hilbrand's is closing on Benjamin here. Hilbrand's on 2-lap pressure tires, so we could see a fight for 6th here pretty soon.
Hilbrand's trying to make up that gap that he's created for himself a little bit earlier on in this race. I think he has what it takes to be able to close on Taylor Butcher Benjamin, but Taylor doing a great job so far tonight, locking himself into 6th place, or getting himself up into 6th place so far today is a really good accomplishment for him. That's one that he can hang his hat on, being a newer guy in this league. So good job for him to be able to be sitting up so high tonight.
Ty Marasco cutting through this lap traffic is really going to help out Hilbrand's trying to close up on Benjamin here, because he's going to no doubt put Benjamin a little bit offline on that approach down to turn number 3. So this could really help Hilbrand's close up. The problem is he still has to get around Paul Satberry that sits just in front of him. Because right now the one that is really the cork in the bottle, Satberry goes high in 3, allows Hilbrand to take to the inside, and that closes the gap up from 6.5 down to 4.
Great job by Hilbrand to execute that pass. Great job by Zapmary to get out of the way and let these guys continue their race. I think that He's kind of learning some of that as he gets more experience throughout this season, and doing a great job to keep that car competitive and yet allow the guys in front of him to be able to compete as well. So Hillbrand's closing that gap just a little bit. Looked like he may have gotten a little loose to that corner, but it doesn't seem to be affecting him that much, as he seems to be closing that gap inch by inch.
Quarter of a second now. Hillbrands is right there. He is now ready to pounce. And this move could very well come here down the back straightaway onto that mad approach down to turn number 3. Hillbrands is closing ever steadily, with Taylor Butcher mentioned struggling to hang on. But right now, that 92 car is on a tear, and he has got the 10 firmly in his sights.
92 really closing that gap, and as we're talking about that, another gap that's being closed as well is Kilroe fighting with Lacey for that 3rd spot on the podium. So when I said it was going to be a tough order for Kilroe to close that gap with 20 to go, he just in 5 short laps was able to close that gap.
Scott still got to get around him though, and that's still a 5.3 second gap back up to the leaders. Right now, Thorpe has not been able to close up anything on Nickerson up the roads. This is looking like that number 2 car is race to lose. Kilroe takes to the bottom side. He is going to be onto the podium, but still with a little ways to go. Tamarasco gets around David Leakey. That's the fight for 11th. And now, checking back in on that fight for 6th.
Taylor Butcher Benjamin still able to hold Tony Hillbrands behind him, but I know that Tony is not content with sitting where he's sitting right now, so he's going to be pushing really hard to try and gain one more spot on the leaderboard before we finish off this regular season. Looking to the inside, taking a little bit of a lower line, but definitely doesn't have the momentum to be able to catch up to him down this front stretch. We'll have to settle in behind once again going into 1.
Paul Satmary still tagging onto the back end. I give Satmary credit. He got out of the way when he realized Hillbrands was in that fight with Benjamin. And he has not imputed them since. He's tagging onto the back end, but he's not getting impatient or making moves to try to unlap himself. He knows that these aren't the leaders, so there's no point. So he's just letting them fight it out up the road. Right now, Taylor Butcher Benjamin struggling to hang on, and Hillbrands way loose in turn 4.
Hillbrands with big loose exiting 4. You can tell when these guys in these Gen 4 cars are pushing it, it's because they'll get loose coming out of the corners with how much horsepower it is in these cars. So seeing him getting loose out of the corner, you know he's starting to get frustrated with where he's sitting at and really wants to try and gain that next step up in the leaderboard. Wasn't able to pull it off, so he ended up sliding back a bit, but is able to close that gap right back up and right back behind Taylor Butcher Benjamin going down the start-finish line.
Checking in on the situation for the leaders, Michael Thorpe Jr. has been starting to reel this gap in, so we could be seeing a battle for the lead picking up here before too long. This is the last lap delta between Nickerson and Thorpe, and you can see he hasn't been gaining a lot, but he has been gaining lap after lap, and he's going to gain a little bit more here this time around. So Michael Thorpe Jr. is starting to close the gap in, but he's only got 13 laps to go. That's not a lot of time. Meanwhile, you check back on Kilroe's progress. He's closing in steadily 2 to 3 tenths of a second every lap. Not a bad run for Kilroe, but again, is it perhaps too little, too late?
I think we're going to be talking too little, too late for Kilroe. Nick Nickerson seems to have had quite a bit of pace so far today, so you really have to have a strong car to be able to catch that kind of a gap. So it looks like Brian Dees and Ty Marasco swapping positions there, but Nick Nickerson's just got to kind of keep it clean, run his race, but we got to see Thorpe close this gap a little bit, and I think Kilroe's beginning to close that gap as well, so it's going to be an interesting finish here to end the regular season.
Kilroe's gap is down to 3.7 seconds. Corp about 1.25 seconds. Oh no, and he's into the infield. Thorpe with a wicked step out, and that with a gnarly move could spell the end of his charge for a win.
Yeah, it's going to be extremely costly for Thorpe, and once again, just trying so hard to close that gap on Nick Nickerson because he knows with 11 to go, he doesn't have much time if he wants to be able to catch him and pass him. So pushing too hard, just coming out of that corner. And that means Kilroe, seeing him slip up, is going to give him an opportunity to take that next step up on the podium.
Boy, oh boy. Was Thorpe going to catch Nickerson if it weren't for that? I don't think so. But you know he's going to be wondering that now if he loses this race by a small margin. Gas back up to second and the third. Carter Phillips could not make it to the end of this race. He was back down into pit road with coming to 9 laps to go. So not an ideal run for him at all. That 2 car still hanging on to the lead. 9 to go from Charlotte.
9 to go from Charlotte, and Nick Nickerson's probably got to be feeling pretty comfortable with where he's sitting at this point. Thorpe closing that gap a little bit, but with how much time it's taken him to make that up, I don't know if he can overcome that deficit. But now we have another battle a little further back with Dustin Ping and Williams.
Sean Williams trying to see if he can put that number 89 machine up one more spot. They are battling it out for 8th position. These are the last cars that you've got on the lead lap. So scrapping it out for the final spot there, and they've got Nick Nickerson about a straightaway's length behind them, just over. This is, again, one of those battles that ebbs and flows, but it doesn't tend to close up much. So it's looking like these drivers are going to be, well, finishing where they're at.
Those guys having another top 10 finish to end the regular season. That'll be a good way for them to get themselves set up for a playoff run. You know, usually people are like, oh yeah, you really want to go for the wins all the time, but sometimes you just need just a top 10 finish to boost your confidence to get you into the playoffs, and then you can really begin to peak. Whoa, as Dees gets loose coming out of the corner there.
And that was just as David Leakey made the pass with the 11th spot. Take a look at this as Leakey opened up the door in the middle of the quad oval and just sent that one down to the inside. And then Brian Dees tracked up to that outside wall and then nearly lost it off the transition of turn 2. Bit of a snap. You saw the wheel work going on even there and did a good job to hang on to that. Nickerson still trying to close down on Thorpe. He's right at the tail end of the draft, but it's just not enough to close in yet.
Yeah, it's going to be close, but he's slowly but surely gaining on Nickerson, so he just needs that couple more feet to get himself into the draft, and then he could really start taking down the lead. With 5 to go, it may be us having a battle in our hands if he can catch that draft within the next couple laps and really close that gap.
I don't know. I mean, he lost about 0.3 of a second when he took that excursion through the grass, cutting the first dogleg quad the last time by. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get it done. 0.9 of a second. The gap is closing. 4 laps to go. At this point, Thorpe would be happy to close it. Oh, my good Lord. Well, if it wasn't over before, it is now. All of that work over the last 10 laps undone in a heartbeat.
Yeah, just typical Thorpe fashion. This guy gives 110% every race, every turn of every corner, and unfortunately with these Gen 4 cars, you can't give it 110% every turn of every corner because it just has too much horsepower to aero ratio, and these cars get loose. So that little mistake is going to drop him almost a half a second from what he had gained to get himself to that point. So definitely too much of a deficit at this point, but that gives Kilroe the sights to be able to close in on Thorpe now, as he's got less than a second gap between him and Thorpe.
I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get there either, frankly. I think Kilroe's burned a lot of his stuff up trying to push up to these guys. So the podium looks relatively set, but you know that's going to be stinging Thorpe in the morning when he thinks back about where it went wrong. Dustin Ping and Sean Williams still exchanging blows in the battle for 8th with 3 laps to go.
Dustin Ping taking the Larson line up top and 2 coming out of the corner there. So Williams is able to take that low line. Low line seems to be the fastest way around the track. And got a nice sizable gap between him and Ping. We'll have to see if Ping has what it takes with 2 laps to go to be able to close that gap. But it kind of seems like those 2 positions will be set as well.
Nick Nickerson takes the white flag. It'll be a caution-free regular series finale at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. We didn't have even so much as a car spinning all the way around. We had a few hits to the wall, but nothing other than that. Thorpe was so close, came to within about 0.9 of a second. If you hadn't gotten loose on those 2 times, you have to wonder, could he have been battling for Nickerson in this final lap. The what-ifs will be haunting him in towards next week, but for now, it's not going to matter. He and Nickerson both locked into the playoffs. Nick Nickerson ties it up with Benjamin Lacey. He takes his 4th win of the season.
Nickerson, Thorpe, and Kilrow all having days that I think you could really hang your hat on going into the playoffs. This is the kind of races that you need heading into the next step of the series to be able to give yourself the confidence you need to make a good run towards the end. It's not always about finishing first in the regular series season, even though that helps. It's just about having confidence at the right time and peaking at the right time. And I think Nick Nickerson completing his 2nd win in the past few races is going to be a huge confidence boost for him. We'll just have to see if his full-time schedule does not have any conflicts, and maybe we'll be talking about him being the champion here at the end of the season.
Nick Nickerson burns it down the front straightaway, and rightfully so, setting Concord, North Carolina alight with an impressive 4th win of the season and going back-to-back with his win last week at Kansas. Kevin Foster officially secured in the grudge match for himself and Connor Gibson. They were tied to the points entering this race, and now Kevin Foster is going to be able to take that final coveted position. He'll be fighting it out for the playoffs with the guys like Nick Nickerson in just 1 week's time when we can return to the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Let's take a run down to go official post-race results here this afternoon and show you how everything finished on up from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. This afternoon, Nick Nickerson takes win number 4 ahead of Michael Thorpe Jr. Dalton Kilwell rounds out the podium. Benjamin Lacey was in 4th. Scott Shire is 5th, with Taylor Butcher-Benjamin in 6th. Tony Hilbrand's in 7th. Sean Williams is 8th. Justin Ping was the last car on the lead lap at 9th. And Tom Marasco in 10th.
David Leakey ended up finishing 11th and Brian Dees in 12th. 13th was Jason Greenwell, and 14th ended up being Kevin Foster, which gave him the opportunity to lock himself into the playoffs. 15th was Paul Zathmary, 16th Carter Phillips. 17th was Mike Massengill, and 18th was DNF for Connor Gibson. And 19th was Brandon Meyer, who did not end up starting the race.
So with all that said and done, the playoffs are set in stone. This is going to be your official playoff field entering the next race from Speedway City over in Indiana. Benjamin Lacey, Nick Nickerson, Tony Hilbrand, Jason Greenwell, Michael Thorpe Jr., Michael Ashmore, Scott Shire, Ty Marasco, Dalton Kilrow, Dustin Ping, Brian Dees, and Kevin Foster will all get set to duke it out for the playoffs over the next 3 weeks in the round of 12. At the end of that, only 8 will remain for the round of 8. Let's go down trackside, give a chit-chat with the drivers that finished this race up on the podium here this afternoon. And we'll, of course, be looking to kick it off first and foremost with the driver that is able to come home and take his an impressive 4th race win of the season. It is going to be back-to-back win for the driver of the Coors Light number 2. And Nick, you tied up with Benjamin Lacey on the record for most wins this season. Walk us through racing action this afternoon, because this one, it was a bit of an interesting one for you, especially in those closing laps.
Man, dude, that was tough. I really didn't think I was gonna make it to the end. It just seemed like I didn't have like the right line to save my tires for the long run. Both Mike and Dalton they were catching me towards the end of those runs, and I made a pretty bad error going into my second or third pit, whatever the last one was, where instead of putting in first, I accidentally put it in reverse, so I probably lost 2 or 3 seconds coming off of pit road. Still made out in front of them, but I thought for sure they're going to run me down. But maybe I got lucky with lap traffic, or maybe they're pushing too hard, but somehow made it to the end. I didn't think I would make it, but that was tough. That was a tough one.
Despite having 3 wins coming into this race, you were still on the outside looking in, 13th place, in the points entering today overall. Was it ever of any concern, though, about where you might end up if you weren't going to be able to make this race tonight?
Not necessarily, man. Like, are we talking like season and points?
Season and points, yeah.
Yeah, I missed so many races. I'm not really too concerned about that. If they'll let me, I'll run for the championship, but if I won it, for one, I'd feel bad, and 2, I can't see it being being able to make every single Monday. I'm sure I'll miss one, at least one, but I mean, I'll try to make a run for the championship and see what happens. Maybe I'll get lucky, but I'm just here to steal as many wins as I can, man.
We'll look forward in the meantime to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's the Legacy 2009 layout, 80 laps around the Brickyard. Probably not going to be caution-free like tonight's race was. What's going to be the game plan for one of the most unique tracks on the schedule?
Man, I don't know. I don't want to jinx myself or anything, but I love this car on that track. Hopefully it's the same setup when they ran it last season during official, because it was just so well planted and it felt amazing. I don't run official races, but I ran maybe 10 races that week last season, and I was loving it. So hope it's the same, and looking forward to that one for sure.
We'll see how things are going to pan out for you. Nick, a great win for you here this afternoon. Congratulations on such a strong drive. We'll see you in a week when we go racing in Indiana.
Appreciate it, man. Take care.
Nick Nickerson takes his 4th race win of the season, and that'll bring us on down to the driver that finished this race down in the secondary for GGA Esports. It is yet another runner-up spot from Michael Thorpe Jr., who is standing by with Josh Baird.
Well, I'm standing by with Michael Thorpe Jr. Congratulations on your 2nd place finish tonight. I know you were trying to give it everything you had to try and get up there to catch Nick Nickerson. It seems almost like a rivalry has began to form as much as you guys end up battling each other out on the track. Why don't you walk us through the last couple laps that you were on board there? It seemed like there was a couple of moments that you may have gotten loose, maybe pushing too hard, or what was that like for you?
Well, at the those final laps, you kind of have to push no matter what, especially with a guy, with a leader 1.5 seconds in front of you. But definitely gave them all. Yeah, as you can tell, I was just loose off the corners, just giving it everything I had. Definitely giving it a little more than 110%, but hey, we'll take 2nd. But we won't be 2nd for much longer. We're going to try to win one, at least win another one.
Yeah, that's a good point you bring up. Looking at it now, the regular season is finally finished. We're looking at a playoff picture. I feel like maybe this is a good confidence boost going into the next race of the season. How are you feeling with the season beginning to finish off with the playoffs?
I feel pretty good. I feel about the next few races are actually going to go pretty well for me as well. And I believe the next race is Michigan, if I'm not mistaken.
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis, oh boy. But we'll see how we do there. But I got a feeling going into that last race of round of 12 at Michigan will definitely be an interesting one, and I'll try my best at that. And definitely at the Atlanta as well. I feel good there. So yeah, those are my big tracks that I'm looking to make big moves and big gains in. And just try to boost up my confidence and boost up those points a little bit more so we can go close in the gap more.
Yeah, I think both of us are fully confident that you're going to be one of the guys that we're going to be talking about at the end of the season, fighting for the championship. So we really hope that you're able to use those tracks that you feel comfortable at. Is there anybody you'd like to thank for your success so far this season?
Thanks my dad, and thank UNH and PRS Setups. Wouldn't be able to make this happen without them, but hey, we are making it happen. We are not going to keep finishing 2nd. We are going to bring 120% each week. So
I love the confidence, and we would not be surprised to see you bringing all that effort as you do every week. And once again, thank you for stopping by the booth to give us that chance to talk with you. Next up is going to be Dalton Kilrow with a 3rd place finish, and he'll be standing by with Nolan.
For Dalton Kilrow, it is a solid pull, and we have not gotten the chance to speak to Dalton too much this season. We'll get the chance to speak to him tonight, though, as Kilrow comes home in 3rd place at the end of the night. Dalton, you came up 3 seconds behind Nick Nickerson at the end of this one. You were showing a lot of charge at the end of the race there. Walk us through that final stint.
Yeah, pretty much every time we had pit, they had pit a lap earlier each time. So that last pit stop, I had 3 lap fresher tires. I mean, I know I had the tire advantage, but I knew by them getting out ahead of me, it would be hard to run them down. So I was just trying to manage just in case a caution came out. So that way, if a caution had come out and the gap would have closed, I would have been able to at least, fight or do something with them. But, they had really good speed all night. I felt like I had better speed than third place, but, hey, I will take it after the season I've had.
You locked yourself into the playoffs. It was 7 to 9 points to the good entering tonight. So about the 9th driver to lock himself in. Walk us through the season as a whole. You mentioned it was not an ideal season for you, but still good enough that you get into the top 12.
Yeah, just had a bit of bad luck. Just some things just not go my way, and always seem to make the wrong strategy decision, even when I'm swapping it up. But luckily, been able to kind of get out of that just a little bit. Started running better, and not just here, but across my other leagues, and the momentum's looking better. And it's one hell of a time to catch some heat.
You talk about that momentum being up, and of course you showed that tonight with a podium finish here in Concord. Will it be the same story then when we go racing for the round of 12?
I'd hope so. We're going to Indy next week, which is one of my favorite tracks of all time. It's actually where I got my first league race win at, so that's I got that going for me. Then we got Watkins Glen, which I'm kind of iffy about. Then Michigan. I love Michigan. That's an MFRD home race, so I got quite a few good tracks that we're going to for me. I honestly, any track besides Watkins Glen, I think they're my favorite tracks. So I'm looking forward to it.
As are we. We'll get set to see them when we go back to racing action in Speedway City next week. Congratulations on taking the racing action here this afternoon, and that third place finish. We'll see you in Indiana.
See ya then.
Dalton Kilrow wraps it up on the podium here this afternoon. Well, with that is going to take us to the end of our podium finishers here this afternoon. A wild race then for us here tonight, Josh, and this sets us up for the top 12 and the playoffs just a week from today.
Yeah, Charlotte did not disappoint. I think once again we talk about these top 3 guys. They did such a great job to position themselves, to give themselves confidence to go in these future races. These next couple tracks, though, are going to be pretty tricky for them with, Indianapolis coming up and then Watkins Glen. And so I think we're going to see quite a shakeup in these first couple playoff races. But then Michigan's going to be a real barn burner to round us off into the round of 8 going into the next section of the season.
It's going to be a wild race coming on up next week to kick off the round of 12 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The ever-famed Brickyard going to be playing host to an 80-lap race. Before we get to all of that, though, on Sunday night, we'll be back in Indianapolis for the Classic IndyCar Series, making their run for the Edifice Grand Prix for race number 7 at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. As well as that, we will be back in action here in Charlotte itself just 2 nights from now on Wednesday, 9:20 p.m. We'll see a strong run for the Beer League on their penultimate race of the season, and then splitting them both, it'll be VSCA with their 7th round of the Sports Car Championship from Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin at Road America for the JRT Summer Sprint, 2 hours and 40 minutes. Bound to be a good one. If you want to find out more about who we are and what we can offer you, check us out today at www.greenflighttv.com. As always, my name is Nolan Ramport, bringing you all of racing action here from start to finish. When we go racing again, it'll be at Indianapolis for the High Tide Racing League and the Racing Designs Cup Series. We'll see you there.